The alarm screamed through the colony control room. Administrator Tilvin felt his 3 hearts jump in his chest. The sound meant only one thing. Something terrible had happened. He rushed to the main console. His thin fingers shook as he pulled up the emergency screen. The words made his blood run cold. Mining Shaft 7 had collapsed. The entire main tunnel was gone. 47 workers were trapped underground. Tilvin stared at the numbers. 3 kilometers down. The rock had fallen everywhere. The air supply would last maybe 20 hours. Maybe less if the workers panicked. His assistant Raylan ran into the room. Her face was white with fear. She could barely speak. Tilvin understood why. This was the worst disaster in colony history. They did not have equipment for this kind of rescue. Their small mining machines could never move that much rock in time. Tilvin made the hardest decision of his life. He activated the emergency distress beacon. The signal would reach across this sector of space. The Galactic Aid Commission would receive it. They would send help. They had to send help. The message went out into the darkness. Tilvin sat down heavily in his chair. Now they could only wait. The Aid Commission usually responded within 18 hours. His people underground had maybe 20 hours of air. It would be close. Very close. 3 kilometers below the surface, Medic Sheris tried to stay calm. She had been near the shaft entrance when it happened. The ground had shaken. Then came the terrible sound of breaking rock. Dust filled the air so thick she could not see her own hands. When the dust cleared, the tunnel behind her was gone. Just solid rock where the exit used to be. She was trapped with 46 other Veltharans. Some were hurt. She could hear them calling for help in the darkness. Sheris forced herself to move. She activated her emergency light. The small beam cut through the remaining dust. She began checking the injured. 3 had broken bones. 5 had cuts that needed treatment. Everyone else seemed mostly unhurt, just terrified. She worked as fast as she could, setting bones, stopping bleeding, keeping everyone as comfortable as possible. But she knew the truth. The real problem was not the injuries. It was the air. In this sealed chamber, they had limited oxygen. Once it ran out, medical care would not matter. Back on the surface, Tilvin received a response to his distress call. But it was not from the Galactic Aid Commission. His screen showed a different signature. His eyes went wide. His hands started shaking again. The response came from a human ship. Humans, the Deathworlders. The species every civilized race feared. The aggressive predators from that nightmare planet called Earth. The message was simple. A human named Captain Dae-hyun stated his ship had received the distress signal. They were 4 hours away. They were coming to help. Tilvin felt sick. Humans were not helpers. Everyone knew the stories. They came from a world of extreme gravity and toxic atmosphere. Their bodies were built for violence. They fought each other constantly throughout their history. Now they traveled the stars, and peaceful species learned to stay away from them. Raylan was crying. Other staff members had gathered in the control room. They all knew what humans were, killers, monsters. And now they were coming here. Tilvin called an emergency meeting with colony security. 5 nervous guards stood before him. He explained the situation. Humans were responding to their distress call. What should they do? The security chief Vorin spoke carefully. They could refuse the human help, wait for the aid commission, but that would take 18 hours. The trapped miners had less than 20 hours of air. The timing was too close, too dangerous. What if they accepted human help? Vorin continued. What would the humans do? Would they help and then demand payment? Would they take over the colony? Would they hurt people? No one knew. Humans were unpredictable. Everyone said so. Tilvin looked around the room. Every face showed the same fear. But he thought about the miners underground. He thought about Sheris down there in the dark, trying to keep everyone alive. He thought about the families waiting on the surface. He made his choice. They would accept the human help. They had no other option. 47 lives depended on getting help fast. Even if that help came from humanity. Tilvin sent a response to Captain Dae-hyun. The Veltharan colony accepted their assistance. He tried to keep his message calm and professional. He did not mention his fear. He did not mention that his entire colony was terrified. The humans confirmed. They would arrive in 4 hours. Tilvin ordered his security team to prepare. He did not know what to prepare for. How do you prepare for Deathworlders? Underground, Sheris had organized the trapped miners. She kept them calm by giving everyone tasks. Some watched the air monitors. Others checked the structural supports. A few tried to dig at the collapsed rock, but it was hopeless. The tunnel was completely blocked. One of the younger miners asked if help was coming. Sheris said yes, help was definitely coming. She tried to sound confident. She did not mention that she had no idea when that help would arrive. She did not mention that their air supply was dropping faster than expected. On the surface, word spread through the colony. Humans were coming. Parents pulled their children inside. People locked their doors. The streets became empty. Everyone waited in fear for the Deathworlders to arrive. Tilvin stood at the control room window. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, a human ship was traveling toward them at incredible speed. In 4 hours, everything would change. He just hoped his people would survive the change. He thought about the stories again. Humans fought wars that lasted for years. They survived in environments that would kill any other species in minutes. They were strong, fast, and dangerous, and now they were coming to his peaceful colony. But Tilvin had made his choice. The miners underground needed help now. The humans could reach them in time. The aid commission could not. It was that simple, even if it meant inviting predators into their home. He looked at the countdown timer. 3 hours and 47 minutes until the humans arrived. Tilvin took a deep breath and tried to prepare himself for whatever was coming. The drill broke through after 7 hours and 43 minutes. Taeyong confirmed the connection to the trapped chamber. The relief shaft was complete. Now came the dangerous part. Going down, Jiwoo assembled her descent team. She would lead the initial entry. 2 other humans would follow. They needed a local guide who knew the mine layout. Engineer Corvin volunteered despite his obvious fear. Corvin was older than most Veltherans on the colony. He had worked in the mines for 30 years. He knew every tunnel and every shaft, but he had never imagined going underground with humans. His hands would not stop shaking as Jiwoo helped him into a safety harness. She checked his equipment twice. Her movements were quick but gentle. She explained each safety feature in simple terms. She told him exactly what to expect during the descent. Her calm confidence made him feel slightly less terrified. Only slightly. They entered the relief shaft. The space was narrow. Jiwoo went first, moving down the rope with smooth efficiency. Corvin followed, trying not to look at the darkness below. The 2 other humans came last, carrying equipment that looked far too heavy for the thin rope. The descent took 40 minutes. Corvin's arms burned from holding the rope. His breathing came hard, but the humans showed no strain. They moved like the weight meant nothing, like 3 kilometers of depth meant nothing. Halfway down, they passed through a section where gas leaked from the rock. Corvin smelled it immediately, caustic and sharp. It would damage his lungs with prolonged exposure. He started breathing through his filter mask, feeling panic rise. The humans barely reacted. Jiwoo checked a monitor on her wrist. She told the others the gas concentration was manageable. They continued descending. Corvin realized they were not even wearing full masks. Just basic filters. The gas that frightened him was nothing to them. They reached the bottom. The collapsed chamber lay beyond a wall of broken rock. Jiwoo examined the barrier carefully. She tapped sections and listened. She checked her instruments. Finally, she pointed to a specific area. They would breach here. The humans began removing rock. They worked with incredible strength. Stones that would require 3 Veltherans to lift. 1 human moved alone. They passed debris back in a steady chain. Their breathing stayed even. They did not slow down. Corvin tried to help. He grabbed a medium-sized stone and struggled to move it. Jiwoo took it from him with 1 hand. She did not say anything. She did not need to. The message was clear. Let the Deathworlders handle the heavy work. After an hour, they created an opening large enough to pass through. Jiwoo called into the darkness. She announced they were a rescue team. She asked if anyone could hear her. A voice answered, Sheris. She sounded weak but alert. She said they had 47 people alive. 3 were seriously injured. Everyone was running low on air. They needed help desperately. Jiwoo told her to stay calm. Help had arrived. She asked Sheris to move the injured close to the opening. They would come through. The humans widened the opening enough to enter. Jiwoo went first. She emerged into the trapped chamber and activated a powerful light. The beam illuminated dozens of frightened Veltharan faces. Sharis saw the humans for the first time. Her medical training helped her stay focused, but fear still gripped her hearts. These were the creatures from the nightmare world. Predators. Killers. And they were here in the dark with her people. Jiwoo approached the injured. She moved with controlled purpose. She knelt beside the first victim, a young miner named Pellis who had a badly broken leg. Jiwoo examined the injury with careful hands. Her touch was surprisingly gentle. She spoke in a calm voice, asking about pain levels and sensation. Sharis watched in confusion. This was not what she expected. The human was not aggressive. She was not violent. She was professional, competent. She knew what she was doing. The other two humans entered the chamber. They brought medical supplies and structural support equipment. One human began setting up bracing to stabilize the ceiling. The other joined Jiwoo in assessing the injured. Then Dr. Hana arrived. She had descended the shaft carrying what looked like half a medical station on her back. The weight should have been impossible for one person, but she moved under it like it was normal. Like Deathworld gravity had trained her body to handle far worse. Hana set up her equipment rapidly. She asked Sharis for a quick briefing on each injured patient. Sharis stumbled through the explanations. She was exhausted and frightened and struggling to believe this was happening, but Hana listened carefully to every word. She asked clarifying questions. She treated Sharis like a respected colleague. The treatment began. Hana worked on the most serious cases. Her hands were steady and precise. She used instruments Sharis had never seen. Some looked too advanced for emergency medicine. Others looked improvised from basic tools. All of them worked. Suddenly, the chamber shook. A secondary collapse. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Sharis screamed. The trapped miners panicked. But the humans moved instantly. Jiwoo threw herself over 3 Veltherans, shielding them with her body. Rocks bounced off her back and shoulders. She did not move until the collapse stopped. When she stood up, Sharis saw blood on her uniform. The human was injured, but Jiwoo ignored it completely. She immediately checked if the Veltherans beneath her were safe. The other humans had done the same. They positioned themselves as shields. They took the impacts, protected the vulnerable. Sharis felt something crack inside her chest. It was not her ribs. It was her fear. These humans had used their Deathworlder bodies to save lives, to protect those weaker than themselves. Taeyoung's voice came through the communication system. He was on the surface. He had detected the secondary collapse. He asked if everyone was safe. Jiwoo reported injuries to the rescue team, but all Veltherans were unharmed. Taeyoung acknowledged. He said he was reinforcing the shaft above them. No more collapses would occur. Hana examined Jiwoo's injuries. The lieutenant tried to wave her off, but Hana insisted. She treated the cuts and bruises with quick efficiency, all while continuing to monitor the Veltheran patients. She could multitask in ways that seemed impossible. The evacuation began. The humans had brought special stretchers designed for vertical extraction. They loaded the 3 seriously injured Veltherans carefully. Jiwoo personally checked every strap, every safety measure. Then came the moment Sharis would never forget. Jiwoo prepared to carry the first stretcher up the shaft. Alone, 3 kilometers straight up. With a patient strapped to her back. In unstable conditions, it seemed impossible. Sharis started to protest. No one could do that. But Jiwoo looked at her with those intense human eyes. She said simply that she had done this before. Many times. This was what humans were built for. Carrying others to safety. No matter the burden, no matter the distance, Jiwoo began climbing. Corvin watched from below. He had followed the humans into this hell. He had seen their strength. But this was something beyond strength. This was will, determination, a refusal to give up that seemed woven into human nature. The other humans followed with the remaining injured. Then they returned for the uninjured miners, trip after trip, never stopping, never slowing. Their stamina seemed infinite. Sharis and Corvin were in the last group. As they ascended with human help, Sharis thought about everything she had witnessed. The galaxy called humans dangerous, and they were. Terribly dangerous. But their danger was not pointed at the weak. It was pointed at anything that threatened the weak. They emerged onto the surface. The sun was setting. Sharis had been underground for 22 hours. But she was alive. They were all alive, because the Deathworlders had come when they were called. The surface medical station was organized chaos. Dr. Hana moved between patients with focused intensity. Her human assistants worked beside Sharis and other Veltharan medics. Together they treated injuries that ranged from minor cuts to critical trauma. Sharis watched Hana work. The human doctor was incredibly fast yet never seemed rushed. Her hands moved with absolute precision. She knew exactly where to touch, how much pressure to apply, which instrument to use next. It was like watching an artist who had perfected their craft over years of desperate practice. One patient needed surgery, a crushed arm that required immediate attention. Sharis had the training but not the confidence for such a complex operation. Hana saw her hesitation. She stepped beside Sharis and began guiding her through the procedure. The human doctor explained each step in simple terms. She demonstrated techniques Sharis had only read about. She showed no impatience when Sharis needed extra time. Her teaching was clear and encouraging. This Deathworlder was not just saving lives. She was teaching others how to save lives. The operation succeeded. The patient would recover. Sharis felt tears on her face. She was exhausted and overwhelmed. Hana placed a hand on her shoulder. The touch was gentle. The human told her she had done excellent work, that she was a skilled medic, that her people were lucky to have her. Underground, the final rescue was underway. The extraction teams had located a miner who had been missed in the initial count. He was trapped under fallen debris in a side chamber. The situation was critical. Jiwoo had gone back down. She reached the trapped miner and assessed the situation. A massive stone slab had pinned him across the chest. He was conscious but struggling to breathe. The weight was slowly crushing him. The chamber was unstable. Any attempt to move the stone with equipment might trigger another collapse. Jiwoo made a decision. She positioned herself beneath the stone and lifted. Corvin was there. He watched in disbelief as the human raised the massive weight. Her muscles strained. Her face showed the tremendous effort, but she held it, steady, unwavering. She told Corvin to pull the miner free. Corvin moved as fast as his thin limbs allowed. He dragged the injured Veltharan out from under the stone. As soon as the miner was clear, Jiwoo carefully lowered the weight back down. She stood breathing hard. Her body was shaking from the exertion, but she had done it. She had held that impossible weight long enough. The miner was badly hurt but alive. Jiwoo carried him up the shaft with the same determined strength she had shown all day. Corvin followed, his mind trying to process what he had witnessed. That kind of strength should not be possible. But humans came from a world where impossible was just another challenge to overcome. On the surface, Tae-young had set up something unexpected. A communication system. He had rigged it to connect the rescued miners with their families. The Veltharans could talk to their loved ones while receiving medical care. Tilvin found Tae-young making final adjustments to the system. The administrator was confused. Why would the humans bother with this? The rescue was complete. This extra effort was unnecessary. Tae-young looked at him with tired eyes. He said it was not unnecessary. The miners had been trapped in darkness for nearly a full day. Afraid, uncertain. They needed to hear familiar voices, to know they were really safe, to reconnect with the people they loved. This was part of rescue too. The emotional part Tilvin watched as miners spoke with their families through the communication system. He saw tears, relief, joy, such simple technology, such a profound impact. The humans had thought of this. They understood that saving lives meant more than just physical survival. Later, as the evening approached, Tilvin found Captain Dae-hyun standing apart from the activity. The human captain was watching his team work. His expression was focused but not tense. He seemed satisfied with how things had progressed. Tilvin approached nervously. He needed to ask a question that had been troubling him. Why were humans helping? What did they want in return? The galaxy did not work on charity. Everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. Dae-hyun looked at him with mild surprise. He said they wanted nothing. They received a distress call. They responded. That was all. That was what you did when someone needed help. Tilvin pressed further. But why? Why travel across space to help strangers? Why risk your lives for people you did not know? Dae-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he explained. Earth was a hard world. Dangerous. Full of disasters that could kill you without warning. Early humans learned quickly that survival meant helping each other. The lone individual died. The group that worked together survived. This lesson got embedded deep in human culture. When someone called for help, you answered, because one day you might be the one calling. Tilvin felt something shift in his understanding. Humans were not predators hunting for weakness. They were survivors who had learned that the strongest tool for survival was cooperation. Their strength was not for domination. It was for protection, for carrying others when they could not walk alone. A young Veltheran miner approached Jiwoo. He was one of the seriously injured. He had regained consciousness and asked to see the human who carried him to safety. Jiwoo came over, her uniform still showing the blood from when she shielded others during the collapse. The young miner reached out with a thin hand. He wanted to touch her face, to confirm she was real. Jiwoo understood. She knelt down and leaned close. The miner's hand touched her cheek gently. He whispered his thanks in broken human language. Jiwoo's eyes filled with tears. She took the small hand carefully in both of hers. She told him he was brave, that he survived when it seemed impossible, that she was honored to help him. Other Veltherans watched this moment. They saw the fierce warrior show vulnerability. They saw the predator cry. They realized something profound. Humans could be dangerous because they chose to be dangerous. But they could also choose to be gentle, to be kind, to be compassionate. And that choice, that control, was more impressive than any physical strength. Sheris joined Hana for a meal break. The human doctor ate with efficient speed, needing fuel for her exhausted body. Sheris asked the question that had been forming in her mind. How did humans develop such advanced rescue medicine? Hana explained that Earth was constantly trying to kill its inhabitants. Earthquakes buried people alive. Tsunamis swept away entire communities. Storms destroyed cities. Fires consumed forest with people inside. Humans had to become expert rescuers or go extinct. They developed medicine that could save people from the most extreme trauma, because on Earth extreme trauma was common. She said it with no pride, just simple fact. This was what survival on a death world required. You learned to pull people from the edge of death. You learned to carry the wounded across impossible distances. You learned to keep fighting when everything seemed hopeless, because hope was the only thing that kept you alive when the planet itself was your enemy. Sheris understood then. Human strength was not random. It was not chance. It was earned through generations of suffering and survival. Every capability they showed today was paid for with the lives of ancestors who did not make it. The humans carried the lessons of their dead in every action they took. As night fell completely, all 47 miners were accounted for. All alive. Several would need extended recovery, but they would survive. The impossible rescue was complete. The Veltheran colony gathered near the medical station. They did not speak much. They simply watched the humans work. These terrifying Deathworlders who had saved them all. Morning came to the colony. The sun rose over a community that had been transformed overnight. Not by destruction, but by salvation. The last of the rescued miners were resting comfortably under medical supervision. All 47 had survived. The Galactic Aid Commission finally arrived. Their ship descended with official precision. They were 22 hours after the initial distress call. By their standards, this was excellent response time. By human standards, it was far too late. The Commission representatives emerged expecting to find a disaster scene. Instead, they found a functioning medical station and calm organization. Their confusion was obvious. How had the rescue been completed already? Tilvin met them with quiet satisfaction. He explained that help had arrived early. Human help. The Commission representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. They knew about humans. Everyone did. But they said nothing critical. The results spoke for themselves. Captain Dae-hyun began preparing his team for departure. The rescue was complete. Their work here was finished. They loaded equipment back onto the Indomitable with the same efficient speed they had shown throughout the operation. Tilvin approached the captain formally. He carried a datapad with official colony records. He wanted to log this rescue properly, to record what the humans had done, to make sure the galaxy knew. He thanked Dae-hyun with words that felt completely inadequate. Thank you for saving our people. Thank you for risking your lives. Thank you for showing us that we were wrong about humans. None of it seemed enough. Dae-hyun accepted the thanks with simple grace. He said his team was glad they could help, that this was what they trained for, that he hoped the colony would recover quickly from this trauma. But Tilvin needed to know more. He asked the captain to explain how humans became so skilled at rescue operations. What drove them to develop these capabilities? Daehyun considered the question. He explained that Earth gave humans no choice. Their planet was beautiful but deadly. Natural disasters happened constantly. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, fires. Early human civilizations learned that disaster response was not optional. It was survival. He said humans developed technology specifically for saving lives in extreme conditions. They created medicine that could treat massive trauma. They built equipment that could function in any environment. They trained rescue teams to never give up no matter how impossible the situation looked. This training became part of human culture. When someone needed help, you helped them. You did not ask about cost or compensation. You did not calculate whether it was worth the risk. You simply helped, because that was what humans did. Tilvin felt his perception of humanity completing its transformation. These were not monsters. They were protectors. Their strength existed to shield others. Their determination existed to overcome obstacles that stood between victims and safety. Their entire species had been forged in fire and taught that the highest purpose of power was to help those without power. Sheris found Dr. Hana packing medical supplies. The young Veltheran medic wanted to express her gratitude. But more than that, she wanted to learn. She asked if Hana could share some of her knowledge about trauma medicine. Hana smiled. She said she would send Sheris a complete medical database. Techniques, procedures, equipment specifications, everything she might need to improve the colony's emergency response capabilities. Free of charge, free of restrictions. Knowledge that could save lives should be shared freely. Sheris was stunned. That information was incredibly valuable. Human medicine was among the most advanced in the galaxy, and Hana was just giving it away. Hana explained that humans believed life-saving knowledge should not have a price. Too many had died on Earth because critical medical information was not available when needed. Humanity had made a collective decision long ago. Medical knowledge would be shared universally, so that no one would die for lack of information. Corvin stood with Tae-young near the Indomitable. The engineer had worked alongside the human throughout the rescue. He had seen the incredible problem-solving skills, the creative solutions, the refusal to accept that anything was impossible. He asked Tae-young about it. How did humans think so differently? How did they see solutions where others saw only barriers? Tae-young laughed quietly. He said it was not that humans were smarter, they were just more stubborn. On Earth, giving up meant death. So humans learned to never give up. They learned to try every possible solution. They learned to make tools work in ways they were never designed for. They learned that impossible just meant nobody had succeeded yet. He told Corvin that every human child grew up hearing stories of people who survived impossible situations. Astronauts who fixed broken spacecraft with improvised tools. Doctors who performed surgery during disasters with whatever supplies they could find. Engineers who built rescue equipment from random materials. These stories taught humans that determination and creativity could overcome almost any obstacle. Corvin realized something important. Being from a death world did not make humans dangerous to others. It made them the most capable helpers in the galaxy. Because they understood survival at its deepest level, they knew what it meant to face death and refuse to accept it. The entire colony gathered to watch the humans depart. This was completely different from their arrival. Then Veltherans had hidden in fear. Now they came outside to see their heroes leave. Children who had been terrified now held handmade signs, simple drawings thanking the humans, messages of gratitude and careful letters. They waved these signs and called out to the departing rescue team. Jiwoo saw the children. Her fierce expression softened completely. She waved back with a genuine smile. This was why humans did rescue work. Not for gratitude, but because seeing survivors safe made every risk worthwhile. The human team boarded their ship. Captain Daehyun paused at the ramp. He looked back at the colony one final time. He gave a small salute to Tilvin, a gesture of respect between those who understood the weight of responsibility. The Indomitable lifted off smoothly. Its powerful engines pushed it upward through the atmosphere. The Veltharans watched until it was just a small point of light in the sky. Then it vanished completely. Tilvin returned to the control room. He needed to file the official report on the incident. As he wrote, a new message arrived. It was directed to the Indomitable. A distress signal from another sector. A different colony. A different species in trouble. He tracked the Indomitable's trajectory. The human ship had already changed course. They were heading toward the new emergency. Without hesitation, without delay, they had just completed an exhausting rescue operation. But someone else needed help. So they went. Tilvin understood completely now. This was what humans did. They heard the call and they answered. Every time, no matter how tired they were, no matter how dangerous the situation. They answered because that was who they had become through generations of surviving their hostile world. They were humanity, the Deathworlders, the rescuers, the ones who came when others could not. Sharis joined several other Veltharans at the medical station. They were discussing what they had learned, the techniques Hana had shown them, the equipment the humans used, the procedures that seemed impossible but worked perfectly. Someone mentioned how strange it was. The galaxy feared humanity's strength, but after today the Veltharans treasured it. They were grateful for every bit of that Deathworlder power, because it had been used to save them. Corvin was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke the truth they had all discovered. Humans were strong because they had to be. They were fierce because their world demanded it. But they were gentle when gentleness was needed. They were kind when kindness mattered. They had the power to destroy but chose instead to protect. That was the real measure of humanity. Not their strength, but what they chose to do with it. The colony began its recovery. The mine would be rebuilt with better safety measures. The injured would heal. Life would return to normal. But the Veltharans would never forget what happened. They would never forget the day the Deathworlders came. And somewhere in the galaxy the Indomitable raced toward another emergency. Captain Daehyun and his crew prepared for another impossible rescue. Because that was what humans did. They saved lives. They protected the vulnerable. They answered every call for help. The galaxy feared humanity's strength. The Veltharans learned to treasure it. And across the stars other species would learn the same lesson. The most dangerous beings in the galaxy were also the most compassionate. Because humans understood something fundamental. True strength was not about who you could defeat. It was about who you could save. The human ship appeared in the sky exactly 4 hours after their message. Tilvin watched from the control room as the vessel descended. It was larger than he expected. Much larger. The ship moved with terrible purpose through the atmosphere. The Indomitable landed near the collapsed mine entrance. The ground shook from its weight. Tilvin had never seen a ship built so heavily. It looked like it was designed for war, not rescue. Everything about it seemed aggressive and threatening. A loading ramp descended from the ship. Tilvin felt his heart racing. He forced himself to walk outside with Raylan and Voreen beside him. They had to meet the humans. They had to try to stay calm. The humans emerged from their ship. Tilvin stopped walking. He could not help it. His body simply refused to move closer. The humans were terrifying to look at. They were so dense, so solid. Veltharans were tall and thin, built for their low-gravity world. These humans looked compressed, like someone had taken a normal being and squeezed all the mass into a smaller space. Their muscles showed through their suits. Every movement looked powerful. The lead human walked forward. He was broad across the shoulders. His face had strong features and dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. When he spoke, his voice was deep and carried easily across the distance. Captain Daehyun introduced himself. He gestured to the others with him. Lieutenant Jiwoo, a female human with sharp eyes and quick movements. Dr. Hana, who carried medical equipment that looked far too heavy for one person to lift. Engineer Tae-young, who was already looking at the collapsed mine with intense focus. Tilvin managed to find his voice. He explained the situation. 47 miners trapped 3 kilometers underground. The collapse had sealed the main shaft. Air supply was critical. They had maybe 16 hours left. Maybe less. Taehyun listened carefully. He asked questions in rapid succession. What kind of rock? How stable was the surrounding structure? Were there any secondary access points? What equipment did the colony have available? Tilvin tried to answer. But the captain spoke so quickly. Humans talked fast and loud. Every word seemed urgent. Tilvin found himself stepping backward without meaning to. Daehyun noticed. He paused and took a visible breath. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, slower. He explained that his team had experience with this type of rescue. They would do everything possible to reach the trapped miners safely. Tae-young approached the collapse site. He examined the fallen rock and checked readings on a handheld device. After several minutes, he turned back to the group. His expression was serious. He said the Veltharan equipment would not work. The rock was too unstable and too heavy. Standard mining tools would take days to cut through. The trapped workers would be dead long before then. Tilvin felt his hope dying, but Taeyong continued talking. He said they would use human equipment instead. More crew members were already unloading gear from the Indomitable. Tilvin watched as humans carried massive equipment down the ramp. Each piece looked impossibly heavy. The humans moved under the weight without strain. They worked with frightening efficiency, setting up their gear in organized patterns. One piece of equipment particularly caught his attention. It was some kind of drilling machine, but it was built on a scale he had never seen. Everything about it looked excessive, oversized, like it was designed to break through a planet rather than rescue people from one. Ji Woo began organizing the rescue teams. She spoke with sharp authority. Her movements were precise and practiced. She assigned roles without hesitation. 2 humans would operate the drill. 3 would handle structural support. 2 would prepare the descent route. She made it all sound simple. Dr. Hana set up a medical station near the mine entrance. She worked with careful speed, arranging equipment and supplies. Tilvin noticed she kept looking at a data pad showing information about Veltharan physiology. She was studying his species, learning how to treat them. A young Veltharan technician named Mirel nervously approached Hana. He offered to help explain their biology. Hana looked at him with those intense human eyes. For a moment Mirel froze, clearly terrified, but Hana smiled slightly and thanked him for the assistance. She asked questions about Veltharan blood chemistry and bone density. Her focus was entirely professional, Raylan whispered to Tilvin. She said the humans were so loud, so aggressive in their movements. Everything they did seemed violent, even when they were just setting up equipment. Tilvin agreed, but he was starting to notice something else. The humans were not actually being violent. They were being urgent. There was a difference. Daehyun called his team together for a briefing. His voice rose in volume as he emphasized key points. Several Veltharans who were watching jumped at the sound. Some actually ran away. The captain noticed immediately. He stopped talking and looked frustrated with himself. He approached Tilvin again. This time he spoke even more quietly. He apologized. He explained that humans sometimes forgot how they sounded to other species. They were loud by nature. It came from evolving on a dangerous world where you had to make yourself heard over wind and predators and distance. He promised they meant no threat. Tilvin felt a strange confusion. The human was apologizing. The terrifying Deathworlder was concerned about scaring them. It did not match the stories at all. Taeyong had the drilling equipment ready. He explained the plan to Tilvin. They would drill a relief shaft parallel to the collapsed tunnel. Once through, they would stabilize the area and create a safe extraction route. The process would take approximately 8 hours. While within the remaining air supply, 8 hours. Tilvin could barely believe it. That seemed impossible, but Taeyong showed complete confidence. He had done this before, he said. Many times. Earth had frequent natural disasters. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides. Humans had learned to rescue people from beneath impossible amounts of debris. The drilling began. The human machine roared to life. The sound was tremendous, unbearable. Tilvin had to cover his hearing organs. But the humans stood right next to the machine without protection. They simply tolerated the noise. Their Deathworld bodies could handle it. The drill cut into the rock like it was soft clay. Tilvin watched in amazement as it descended rapidly. Taeyong monitored the progress on multiple screens. His hands moved constantly, making tiny adjustments. His focus never wavered. He had been working for 2 hours straight without rest. Jiwoo prepared the descent team. She checked safety harnesses and equipment with meticulous care. Every buckle, every connection. She tested each piece twice. When another human asked if she was being too careful, she looked at him with hard eyes. She said they were rescuing people who trusted them. There was no such thing as too careful. Tilvin realized something. These humans were not monsters. They were professionals. They knew exactly what they were doing. Every action had purpose. Every movement was controlled. The aggression he had seen earlier was not violence. It was determination. Vorin approached Tilvin. The security chief looked troubled. He said he had been wrong about the humans. They were not here to hurt anyone. They were here to help. Actually help. It seemed incredible, but it was true. Daehyun joined them. He asked if there were families of the trapped miners nearby. Tilvin said yes, they were gathered in the community center. The captain nodded. He said Dr. Hana would go speak with them. She would explain the rescue plan and answer any medical questions. He wanted the families to know their loved ones were going to come home. Tilvin felt something strange in his chest. Something he had not expected to feel when the humans arrived. He felt hope, real hope. These Deathworlders might actually save his people. The drill continued its relentless progress downward into the rock. The sound echoed across the colony. To Tilvin, it no longer sounded frightening. It sounded like salvation.